Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am Joey Francis, your life, love, and relationship coach. Thank you so much for joining me. Rejection is one of the few honest things left in modern dating. It doesn't feel honest when it happens because it feels personal. It feels like somebody looked at you, your personality, your effort, your body, and humor, your energy, and decided you weren't it. And if you've ever been rejected by someone you genuinely liked, you already know the first place your mind goes. It doesn't go to logic, it goes to identity. What's wrong with me? Why wasn't I enough? What did I do wrong? So before we even talk about reframing rejection, I want to say the part that most people skip because they're trying to be tough. Rejection is real. Rejection can hurt. It can sting. It can embarrass you. It can bring up old wounds. It can hit insecurities you forgot you even had. It can make you question your value even when you know better. And you're allowed to feel that. You're allowed to feel all of it. But what you're not allowed to do, if you want a different dating life, that is build a story about yourself based on someone else's no. Because here's the truth: rejection, in its cleanest form, is not a statement about your worth, it's a statement about fit. It's somebody telling you, in the only language that matters in dating, I am not the person for you. And if you're listening to me, that is exactly what you should want: the truth. You don't want to be half liked. You don't want to be tolerated. You don't want to be someone's convenient option. Although, let's be honest, there are a bunch of you out there that would accept those things. You want a relationship where the person you're with actually likes you, actually values you, and actually wants you there. So the moment someone rejects you, they aren't giving you something that can save you. They are giving you something that can save you months, sometimes years of your life. They're giving you clarity. And today, I want to talk about rejection as a good thing, not in a just be positive kind of way, not in a everything happens for a reason way. I mean, in a grounded, practical way. I want to talk about why rejection is a filter, why it's a form of protection, how to stop turning it into a self esteem crisis, and what to do with the pain when it hits you anyway. Because the goal isn't to become numb. The goal is to stay open without becoming desperate. The goal is to stay confident without pretending you're invisible. The goal is to date with intention, which means you don't treat every no like a catastrophe, and you don't treat every yes like a guarantee. Let's start with what rejection actually is. See, most people interpret rejection as they didn't choose me. Now, granted, that is true, but it's incomplete. The deeper truth is they didn't choose the version of life they would have with you. That's what choosing is in dating. When someone choosing you, they're choosing a future that includes your personality, your pace, your needs, your boundaries, your lifestyle, your communication, your goals, your flaws, your strengths. They're choosing the whole package, not just your highlight reel. So when someone says no, what they're really saying is, I don't want that package, or I don't believe I can meet that package, or I don't feel that pull. My life can't hold this. Or even sometimes I just want something else. And I know some of you want to argue that. You want to say, but Joey, they didn't even get a chance to know me. You want to say, but if they gave me more time, they would see. You want to say, but we had chemistry. You want to say, but I could have been great for them. And here's the thing. Maybe you could have. But dating is not a courtroom. It's not buying a car. You don't need to convince someone. Dating is not a job interview where you talk your way into a role. Dating is a mutual decision about whether two people want to build something together. If someone doesn't want to build with you, that doesn't mean you're broken. It means the answer is no. And that's where the gift is, because a clean no is a boundary. It is someone telling you the truth about their desire and their capacity. It's a painful truth, but it's still the truth. Now, there are two versions of rejection. There's the clean version where someone tells you directly, I don't see this going further. I don't feel the connection I'm looking for. I don't think we're aligned. I'm not ready, or I'm not interested. And then there's the messy version, ghosting, breadcrumbing, slow fades, mixed signals. That's still rejection, but it's rejection with avoidance attached. And it can hurt worse because it doesn't give you a clean ending. It gives you ambiguity. It makes you keep checking your phone and invites you to keep hoping. But even in the messy version, the truth is the same. They're not choosing you. They're not choosing this. They're not meeting you with intention. So here's the first reframe I want you to carry. Rejection is not a description of your value. It's the end of a mismatch. If you can really absorb that, you can stop trying to squeeze yourself into someone else's preferences. You stop trying to perform your way into being wanted. You stop trying to become easy or cool or low maintenance so you can be kept. Someone who wants you doesn't need you to shrink. They need you to show up. And they need to appreciate that. Now let's talk about why rejection feels so brutal, even when you know it's not a worth issue. Rejection triggers old wiring. It can hit childhood stuff. It can hit the part of you that learned love was, and still is, frankly, conditional. It can hit the part of you that believes you have to earn your place. It can hit the part of you that equates being chosen with being safe. That's why a rejection can feel like an emergency. Your body reads it as a threat, even if your mind understands that it's normal. So the first coping skill is not a thought, it's regulation. When you get rejected, your nervous system goes loud. You want to text, you want to explain, you want to ask for another chance. You want to get clarity that you already have. You want to force them to know how it makes you feel. That urge is not love, that urge is fear. And if you don't learn how to sit with that fear, you'll keep doing the same thing. You'll chase people who already said no, and then you'll call it chemistry because the chasing makes you feel alive. So when rejection hits, the first job is to calm your system, calm it enough to be able to see clearly. That means doing very simple things, going for a walk, eating something, sleeping, calling a friend, going to the gym, getting outside, returning to routine. Not because these things fix the rejection, but because they prevent you from making the rejection worse. And that brings me to the second reframe. Rejection is information. It is not an invitation to negotiate. If somebody says, I'm not interested, it is not your job to argue. Your job is to not persuade. Your job is to not prove. Your job is to accept the information and move on with your life. This isn't like you going to buy a car and saying to the salesman, listen, if you don't want to give me a deal, I'm going to walk. I'm going to walk. And that salesman trying to bring you back to say, no. I'll give you a deal. This isn't that. This is where self-respect shows up. Not in your confident speeches, but in your behavior when you feel unwanted. Now let's talk about the deeper reason rejection is good. Because it prevents you from wasting your life in the wrong room. Picture a relationship where someone doesn't truly like you for being you. They like the idea of you. They like certain parts of you. They like what you do for them, but they don't like your actual personality, your needs, your pace, your standards. What happens in that relationship is rarely dramatic at first. It's quiet. You end up moderating and editing yourself. You perform, you anticipate moods, and you shrink your needs to keep the peace because bringing your full self starts to feel risky. That's not love, that's survival. So if someone rejects you, they're saving you from building a home in a place that would never be safe. They're saving you from the slow death of being tolerated. They're saving you from the kind of relationship where you're always trying to earn basic affection. That's why rejection, as painful as it can be, is still protection. And I don't know how many times I need to say this to all of you, but time is the one commodity in the world, in the universe, until they invent a time machine, but even then, that we will never get back. Here's another truth. People who reject you are not always wrong about you. Sometimes they're just wrong for you. A person can reject you because they want something different. They might prefer a different personality. They might prefer a different lifestyle. They might want a different relationship pace. They might be attracted to different qualities. They might be in a different season of their life. And yes, sometimes they reject you for shallow reasons. Sometimes they reject you because they're emotionally unavailable. Sometimes they reject you because they're scared of intimacy. Sometimes they reject you because they are chasing novelty. Sometimes they reject you because they're not ready to be chosen by a healthy person. You do not need to diagnose it. You just need to respect the decision and protect your time. Because if someone is emotionally unavailable and they reject you, they're telling you, I can't meet you. That is extremely useful information. If someone is immature and they reject you, they're telling you, I can't hold this. That is useful information. If someone is not attracted and they reject you, they're telling you, the chemistry isn't here for me. That is useful information. The mistake is when you translate their I can't meet you into I am unmeetable. And that is not the same sentence. Now, let me give you a practical way to reframe rejection without bypassing your feelings. When you get rejected, your mind tends to ask, what's wrong with me? I want you to replace that question with a better one. What did this protect me from? Not in a bitter way, in a realistic way. If they didn't like your personality, what did it protect you from? It protected you from spending months with someone who would slowly criticize you into silence. If they didn't like your pace, what did it protect you from? It protected you from being rushed into things you weren't ready for, or being slowed down by someone who couldn't show up. If they weren't ready, what did it protect you from? It protected you from becoming their therapist, their training partner, their emotional rehab. If they weren't consistent, what did it protect you from? It protected you from living in uncertainty. That question doesn't remove the sting, but it gives the sting meaning. And meaning helps you move on from this. Now, I want to talk about another aspect of rejection that people ignore. Sometimes rejection is a sign that you showed up honestly. A lot of people get rejected after they finally speak up. They say what they want. They set a boundary. They express a need. They stop being cool. They stop going with the flow. And then the other person pulls away. That rejection can feel devastating because it feels like the moment you were finally yourself, you were punished. But that's exactly why it's good. Because what you just learned is that this person only liked you when you were easy to consume. They liked you when you were low maintenance. They liked you when you were agreeable. They liked you when you didn't require anything. And the moment you required respect, they left. That is not your loss. That's your filter working. Here's a line I want you to remember the next time you're rejected after you speak up. If being honest makes them leave, the honesty didn't ruin anything. It exposed what was never going to be safe. Now, let's get more specific and start talking about coping, because this is where people struggle. Rejection hurts in the moment because it collapses a future you were imagining. Even if you were only a few dates in, you might have built a picture. Your mind starts filling in the blanks. It starts forecasting. It starts dreaming. And rejection just pops that bubble. So the pain isn't just that they didn't want you. It's that you have to let go of the version of life that you were just picturing. That is a form of grief, and grief needs to be processed, not argued with. So here's what I recommend as a rejection protocol. Not a long checklist, just a process that you can repeat. First, you respond with dignity. If someone says no, you don't beg, you don't bargain, you don't punish, you don't lecture them on what they're missing, and you don't do the fine, I didn't like you anyway performance, because we all know that you're full of shit. Okay, because if that was the case, you wouldn't try in the first place. You just keep it simple. Thank you for being honest. I wish you the best. But then you remove all access. This is where people fail. They say the right words. Then they keep the person in their orbit. They keep watching stories. They keep liking posts. They keep answering late night DMs. They keep the wound open. If you want to heal, you don't keep touching the bruise. So you take space. You mute, you unfollow, you block, whatever you need to do. You stop revisiting the conversation. You stop rereading messages. Not because you're childish, but because you're human. Your nervous system needs distance to let go. There's a reason why this saying exists. Out of sight, out of mind. And then you do a reality check. Your mind will try to create a story about what this means. It means I'm not attractive. It means I'm too much. It means I'll be alone. It means nobody chooses me. Those are just stories. The reality is much more simple. One person did not choose you. So you can say this out loud. This is painful, but it is not proof that I'm unlovable. And I know that sounds small, but it matters. You listen to you. Your brain believes what you repeat. And then you take care of your body, because rejection lives in the body. If you stop sleeping, stop eating, stop moving, you amplify the pain. Treat it like you're recovering from a minor injury. You don't need a dramatic plan. You need a basic one. And then you extract the lesson without turning it into self-blame. This is where you ask yourself, what did I ignore? What did I hope would change? What did I project? What did I learn about what I want? Not how do I become different so I won't be rejected? That's how you lose yourself. The lesson is not to be more appealing. The lesson is be more aligned. And finally, when you return to your life, and this sounds obvious, but it's not, many people pause their life until the pain passes. They isolate. They stop doing things. They stop being social. They sit with rejection until it becomes their identity. Don't do that. Go live your life. Keep your routines. Keep your friendships. Keep your goals. Keep your moments. Not to distract yourself, but to remind yourself that life is bigger than one person's decision. Let me give you a real example, because this is where the concept becomes practical. A woman I worked with met a man she liked quickly. He was charming, he was consistent at first, and she could feel herself starting to invest. They weren't exclusive, but she was already narrowing her focus because she wanted to do the right thing. Then, about 3 weeks in, he sends the message. He said he enjoyed her, he respected her, but he didn't feel the connection he was looking for. She read it and felt that familiar flood. Her first instinct wasn't to say, okay. Her first instinct was to fix it. She wanted to ask, what did she do wrong? She wanted to ask for another date. She wanted to explain herself. She wanted to give context. She wanted to say, you don't know me yet. She wanted to chase the outcome because the rejection hit an old wound. This is the part where most people make the rejection worse. They don't just get rejected. They then abandon themselves trying to undo it. They bargain for dignity or for a different ending. Instead, we slowed it down. She responded with respect. Then she did something most people don't do. She told the truth to herself. She admitted she was more attached to the idea of being chosen than she was to the man himself. She also admitted, while he was charming, he had been vague about what he wanted, and she had been filling in the blanks with hope. This is what rejection does when you let it. It forces you to see reality without the fantasy layer. A month later, she met someone else. The difference wasn't that this person was better on paper. The difference was that she didn't feel like she had to be impressive. She didn't feel like she had to perform confidence. She could be direct and still be liked. She could move at her pace and still be pursued. She could be herself without paying a price for it. That's what people mean when they say, when it's right, it's easier. It isn't effortless, but it's not unsafe. And the only reason she was available for that is because she didn't spend months trying to turn a no into a maybe. That's why rejection is a gift, not because it feels good, because it really doesn't, it sucks, but because it prevents the slow bleed. Now, there's another piece here that matters. Sometimes people ask, should I ask why? Should you request feedback? Should you chase closure? And here's my answer. And some of you probably already know this. If you had a long relationship and you're ending something serious, feedback can be useful. In early dating, most why conversations are not about growth. They're about soothing the ego. They're about searching for a reason that makes the rejection feel controllable. The truth is, most people can't even explain their attraction honestly, and many people will soften their answer to avoid conflict. You'll get vague lines like, I'm not ready, or I'm busy, or I don't feel it. And then you'll use that vagueness as fuel to keep hoping. So if someone says no, take the no. If you want to grow, do it in a way that doesn't require them to validate you. You can reflect on your own behavior. You can notice patterns. You can talk to someone you trust. You can ask yourself what you ignored. You can tighten your blueprint. You don't need the person who rejected you to become your teacher. I also want to address rejection that doesn't come as a clean sentence. A lot of people don't get rejected directly. They get rejected through effort dropping. The text slow down, the plan stops, the warmth disappear. Then when you bring it up, you're told you're overthinking. That's still rejection. And it's more painful because it tries to keep you uncertain. If you learn anything from this episode, let it be this. You don't need a formal breakup to accept reality. If someone is treating you like an option, the answer is already no. This is where coping becomes about self-respect. The moment you notice yourself checking your phone, replaying your last message, and trying to decode their tone, you're not in a connection anymore. You're in anxiety. And anxiety is not a relationship. So if you get the slow fade, you can still handle it with dignity. You can still close it cleanly. You can still say, I'm looking for consistency and attention. And if you're not feeling this anymore, that's okay. But I am not interested in ambiguity. And then you step back. That protects you from becoming someone who accepts crumbs. Now, finally, I want to say something about rejecting other people because intentional dating means you will be on both sides of this. Some of you avoid rejecting because you don't want to be the bad guy. So you keep people around longer, you know who you are, than you should. You answer texts you don't want to answer. You accept dates you don't want to go on. You ghost because it feels easier than honesty. Don't do that. If you want to live in a dating culture that has more respect, you have to participate in it. So many people out there, right? Everybody has complaints about breadcrumbing and ghosting and this, that, and the other. But then when it comes to them, they have no problem into doing it to other people so that they can avoid the responsibility and accountability. Rejection can be kind. It can be simple. It can be direct. You don't need to crush someone. You also don't need to keep them hooked. A clean rejection sounds like, I've enjoyed getting to know you, but I don't feel the connection I'm looking for. I wish you the best. That's enough. You are not responsible for their feelings, but you are responsible for your integrity. When you reject cleanly, you model the standard you want to receive. And when you receive that rejection cleanly, you prove to yourself that you can handle disappointment without losing yourself. That's the goal. Now, some of you are listening and thinking, okay, Joey, but what about the shame? What about feeling embarrassed? What about feeling like I put myself out there and got rejected? Well, that shame is one of the reasons rejection hurts so much, because it makes you want to hide. It makes you want to protect your ego by pretending you didn't care. I want to give you a different frame. If you can be rejected, it means you can be brave. Dating, very much so, requires vulnerability. You are putting yourself into possibility of loss. That's the cost. If you want the reward, you have to accept the risk. And I ask people this question all the time. It's literally, I think, in the first episode of this podcast. Are you ready to give someone the power to hurt you? Are you ready to be vulnerable? Because without vulnerability, you will never create a true relationship. This is the consequence. Sometimes you will be rejected. Sometimes you will feel shame. Sometimes you will feel embarrassed. And sometimes you will be the one rejecting other people. So instead of feeling ashamed that you were rejected, respect the part of you that was willing to try. I'm not saying celebrate rejection. I'm saying don't let it humiliate you. Rejection is not a reflection of your courage. It's a reflection of their preference and their capacity. Now, I want to connect this to intentional dating because this is where people lose the plot. When you date intentionally, you don't date to be chosen, you date to choose well. That means you are also going to be rejecting people. You are saying no to mismatches. You are saying no to what doesn't fit your blueprint. You are saying no to people who are not aligned with the life you want to build. So why is it so hard to accept a no from somebody else? Because you're not just trying to build a relationship. You're trying to prove something about yourself, your lovability, your desirability, your worth. That proof seeking is what turns rejection into a crisis. So the deeper work here is learning to separate your self-worth from your dating outcomes. Your dating outcomes are data. They are not identity. A person saying no does not make you less valuable. It simply redirects you. This is why rejection can be one of the greatest accelerators of your dating life if you let it. It forces you to stop negotiating with someone who is not choosing you. And it ends the ambiguity that keeps you investing into a mismatch. The person who rejects you is doing you a favor by closing a door you might have kept knocking on. Now, I want to make one more important point because this is where people get stuck in a loop. Sometimes rejection makes you chase harder. You might not even like the person that much, but the moment they say no, you feel that urge to prove yourself. The rejection lights up your ego and your insecurities. You start thinking, "Oh, I'm going to change their mind. What did I do wrong? How do I get them back?" that is not love. That is your ego trying to repair itself through someone else's attention. So if you notice that you only want someone when they pull away, be honest with yourself. You're not chasing them. You're chasing the feeling of being chosen by someone who can withhold. If you want to break that pattern, you have to stop treating rejection like a challenge. Rejection is not a dare, it's a decision. Now, I want to end this with a perspective shift that can change how you date moving forward. What if rejection is actually the moment you get your time back? Again, time is the most valuable currency in dating. It's the one thing you do not get refunded. When you spend months on someone who doesn't like you for being you, you are paying with your life. If someone tells you early that they're not aligned or they're not interested, painful as it may, you've just been handed your time, focus, and energy back, along with the opportunity to build it with someone who can actually meet you. That's why I call rejection honest. It can hurt, but it can also liberate you. So if you're dealing with rejection right now, here is what I want you to hold. You're allowed to be sad for a minute. You're allowed to feel the sting. You're allowed to grieve the future you pictured with this person. But after that, you come back to the standard. If they don't like you for being you, that's not a tragedy. That's alignment doing its job. Now, on that note, actually, you know what? I still have some time. I actually have another story for you because after this was written, I don't know if you notice that I post like shorts on my WhatsApp, and a girl that I've came into contact with, I don't even know, like 5, maybe even 10 years ago, saw the story and just shot me a message like, oh, you know what? I agree with you. This is so incredible. And I was just like, oh, okay, thank you. And then right away, she asks, can I ask you a question? Absolutely. That's what I'm here for. And she asks me, can someone fake being in love and like still be with you? And obviously the answer is yes. And then she asks me, can someone fake being in love with you and be with you for a very long period of time? Like say like over a year. And I said, yeah, absolutely. And she asked me how. And I mean, obviously I'm not this person, but I gave her some examples. You know, maybe they're afraid of the unknown. Maybe they're afraid of being alone. Maybe they're afraid of being single. Maybe you check off enough boxes on their list that they're okay with, you know, the love not being real and they're essentially just dating a resume. And then she said to me, okay, because I had this feeling that this is what was happening with my ex-boyfriend. And I said, oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Is everything okay? And she's like, well, we just broke up not that long ago. And I asked her, like, was it mutual? Did he break up with you? Did you break up with him? And she's like, no, he broke up with me. And that's where the tie into this episode is. Because he didn't give her a reason. Well, all he said was, I can't do this anymore. I'm not feeling it. You know, I need out. And she had no idea. And I'm sure there's other people out there that have been in this type of situation where you're dating someone, you're with them, there's no problems, there's no issues. Everything seems perfectly fine. And then out of nowhere, no day, nowhere, out of nowhere, one day, that's what I was trying to say. I was getting it mixed up. Out of nowhere, one day, the person comes and just says, can't do this anymore. I had enough. And she was devastated by it. She was devastated by it. There are a few other videos that I sent her that could help her explain to things. And I even said it to her myself. Were you 100% authentically yourself. Oh, because she was saying to me, what did I do wrong? I must have done something wrong. What did I do wrong? And I just want to know what I did wrong. And I asked her, were you 100% authentically yourself in this relationship? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. She's like, I'm always myself. And I know she's like a very, very honest person. She's actually a nurse. She's such a sweet woman. And she was like devastated because she's like, what did I do wrong? And you know what most people are going to say to her? You didn't do anything wrong. What are you talking about? You didn't do anything wrong. And I said to her, I'm like, yeah, you probably did do something wrong. And she's like, but what do you mean? She's like, what do you mean I did something wrong? I go, you obviously did something wrong. The question isn't, you know, what you did wrong. The question is who you did wrong to. Because there is no universal standard for right and wrong. I mean, yeah, okay, I know that there kind of is, but what each and every one of us perceive as life is how we perceive life. And I mean, even if you talk about, you know, wars and fights and arguments, both people on both sides tend to believe they're right for the good of them and their people. So it's only a matter of, you know, as the saying goes, the winners write the history books. So if she did something wrong to him, it doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong universally. It just means it was wrong to him. And I said to her, I go, if you did do something wrong, it was wrong to him. But who is he to decide what is right and wrong for you or for the universe? It was just wrong for him. And that's why he couldn't deal with you anymore. For whatever reason that is. And I know that it sucks because you were with him for a year, and why couldn't he figure this out sooner? But you were your 100% authentic self. And at the end of the day, I can say this, that if you were 100% your authentic self, then he wasn't for you because he didn't appreciate you for you. He wanted you to be somebody else. And you weren't. You were yourself. And that's the most important thing. That should help you be able to sleep at night instead of trying to conform to someone else's ideals. Because you were yourself and they didn't like it or it wasn't enough for them. And that's fine. Because the goal is to find somebody whom you can be 100% yourself with. And they love and appreciate it, and vice versa. After our conversation, she thanked me because she said, you know, it still hurts, but hearing this perspective definitely helps. And I even said to her, like, if she needs to talk, I'm here. But yeah, sometimes it can just happen out of nowhere after a long period of time. I mean, even in marriages and things of that nature, you know, where two people fall in love and love each other dearly, but essentially, because sometimes, you know, our idea of what the future doesn't align with the person we're with, and we grow in different directions, and it just ends. It just ends. Not for any like terrible bad reason, which I know sometimes makes it easier to deal with. Like if someone cheats on you or you know, disrespects you, whatever the case is, because now it's like, oh, I can't live with this. It's easier to get dumped or to walk away from it. But when it's two people, you know, growing apart or somebody just realizing that you're not for them, it hurts a little bit more. But as long as you remember that you are 100% your authentic self and they didn't appreciate or like that, well, there's nothing you can do about it because you cannot change that person. That person is you. So celebrate yourself. Understand that having a life with somebody is about acceptance. Again, something I say all the time. Both of you accepting each other for exactly who you are. Anyways, I'm going to stop rambling now. I hope that you've enjoyed this. And you know, just like that friend of mine, if you have any questions for me or podcast ideas, you can message me at joeyfrances.com. That's joeyfrances.com. And there you can get access to my services, my books, and of course, the form to send me a message. And one last thing, here's what I want to leave you with tonight. Rejection isn't the universe closing a door on you. It's the universe taking you out of the wrong room. Till next time.